know what he was doing, Moshe Rabbeinu. Right, Chavre, with the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Brachas, Perek Gimel, Halacha Hey, and God willing, starting Halacha Vav. In the Ois V'Hadar's edition, we are going to be learning Daf Mem Aleph. We left off on Daf Mem Aleph, Amud Aleph, right, all the way on top of the Amud, dedicating this class for the miracle that we are all expecting, and that is for us being able to take back all of the Yidden that were kidnapped, and for the tremendous success of the IDF, and for the safety of all the Yidden. Amen. We're going to be learning more regarding the respect that we have to give to Sfarim, beginning with the din that one may not sit on a bench on which a Sefer Torah is placed. Then we're going to learn how one will be allowed to do so. We're going to learn the correct method of storing tefillin. Today, I mean, we're living in a modern world. Everyone has little bags. They didn't have it then. Many people didn't have proper bags for the tefillin. Where would they store it? How do you store it? We're going to learn interesting about sneezing during Shemona Esrei, spitting during Shemona Esrei, spitting in a Beis HaKnesses. And we're going to go back a bit to learn before the new Mishnah more details regarding the obligation of distancing oneself 4 amas from Meraglayim and from Tzoya. And God willing, we're going to start the new Mishnah, what we refer to as Halacha Vav. And there we're going to learn, at least learn the Mishnah, that we're, in addition to one being a Balkedi, there is also another form of Tumah. Meaning, even if one is going to go to the mikvah, one won't be able to remove that other tumah, as we'll see. We'll see a machlokes in the Mishnah between Tanaim, whether indeed one still has to go tfilas ezra, or whether in such scenarios, as the Mishnah will give, it will not be necessary. And without any further ado, Chavre Daf Mem Aleph, Amud Aleph, all the way to the top of the Amud. Okay. The Gemara begins today by quoting a Braisa. Says the Braisa, learning a Tana. Lo yeshiv adam al gab safsol. A person is not allowed to sit on a safsol, which is on a bench, on a bed. She sefer Torah nasan olav, upon which a sefer Torah is placed. It's considered bizoyim. But you and the sefer Torah are of the same madrega. However, and it indeed says the Braisa Maisa beRebbi Eliezer. Shehoyo yoshev al gab safsol. He was sitting on a bench. She sefer Torah nasan olav, without being aware that there's a Sefer Torah somewhere at the other end of the bench. And what happened was, Vihirtia Melofanav, when he became aware, what happened? Martia means he recoiled. Kemartia Mifnei Hanakash. The way one recoils from Shatim. Not in fear of a snake, but in pain of a snake bite. It was that painful for him that he, unaware, inadvertently was sitting on the same platform. Now, interjects the Gemara that if the Sefer Torah was placed on another object, then, in other words, it's not Sefer Torah bench, you on the bench. There's something on the bench upon which is the Sefer Torah, then it's going to be mutter. The question is there a minimum height to that elevation, to that additional platform? So the Gemara is saying, Taka ad heichon. Right? Is it just if there's a little plank of wood, is that enough? So it says the Gemara, tefach, and not less. But Rabbi Yirmiyah b'shem Rabbi Zeira says afilu kolshu. In the Bavli, there are other opinions that are more chamur, and that will be chavre 10 tefachim. That's the most chamur opinion because 10 tefachim makes it into a reshus by itself. Then you on top of the bench. Then you have another shita that says 3 tefachim. And in halacha, we go with those two. That lachatchila 10 tefachim and b'di'evet 3 tefachim. We don't paskin here like the Yerushalmi. Could be that the Yerushalmis were holier. So the disrespect for them to be with the Sefer Torah was lesser. So as long as you live to Sefer Torah, psakol shehu is good enough. And then when we went further into Golos, we left the Holy Land. Then the difference currently is a bit more. Okay. Back to the Braisa. Says the Gemara, Daiski is a sack. This is a transportation sack, a duffel bag. Shimalei Sfarim. Or, interestingly, similarly, we have an obligation to give kavod hameis. And now you're traveling on an animal. And the norm would be that you would take these bags, shmuli, and you would throw it over your shoulder. And it would be hanging. It would be hanging behind you. Is that something problematic? It's not problematic. It's not considered a disrespect because that's the way people travel. In other words, by traveling, whatever normally would be not bachavadik will be accepted. However, what we are trying to imply that putting it behind you, David, is okay. What about sitting on it? Sitting on it is not okay. Why would people sit on things if they would be afraid of ganavim? However, we actually paskin that if indeed there is a fear that someone is going to steal, then it's different. Then we even paskin then you can have it under you, say under the saddle, to hide it if you need to hide it. But if not of the fear of ganavim, then you can't sit on it, but you can put it behind you, even though putting it behind you might not be that respectful, and if you think about it, you might be sitting on the same donkey. It doesn't matter. You're traveling. I can say like this, that I know that nowadays when you transport a Sefer Torah, you know what they do? Now, to send it under is avadanat. We're not even talking about that. God forbid. But you know what they do? I mean, first of all, they unsew it. Just one yeriya. In other words, they remove kedusha Sefer Torah lechatchila. That I know everyone does. Huh? And then it's like a Sefer Torah, and that already helps and to compound it with you putting it in a few coverings. We spoke about this yesterday, even though in the Yerushalmi it says one, it's really two, it's really three. By Sfarim it's two. You know, I think actually then they send it under. I think that's what they do to Sefer. Trying to remember, Vlad, how was your Sefer Torah transported? Exactly that way. Exactly that way. When you brought it back from Crown Heights here, both. That's what they did. They unsewed it. That's what they did. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I know by Vlad they aside of that, was aside of it not putting it under, they took away the kedusha of a Sefer Torah for the honor of the Sefer Torah. That's what they do. They don't just send it over. Good thanks. But let me go and think that the Sefer Torah we have from Vlad has a lot of stories behind it. But one of it is when you guys stole it out of Russia because it was hidden. One of them were wrapped around the person. That's what we're saying. Why? Because we were afraid they would have stolen it. That's what I'm saying. That if there's afraid that they're going to take it away, you can even sit on it. Because the goyim are going to take it. Okay, let's go back. Now, what about tefillin? I know like this. Now, we learned this in Shulchan Aruch, we have the Shulchan Aruch series on Chabad.org. So I made a statement that now at least I can correct. So let me just say everything by heart. It's considered disrespectful to have the tefillin hanging by its straps. So you have the box and you have the straps. The right way is to hold the box and let the straps hang. The wrong way would be to hold the straps and let the box hang. So I mentioned over there that even when you're putting it on, what I'm saying is correct. But not make it, even when you're putting it on, it's better. Like with the tefillin shel roish, never hold it in a way where the box is just hanging. And that was something that al pi halacha you are allowed to do. But other than, when you're putting it on, some people, the way they put it on at the end is that they grab the ritzus of the side. There's a moment where you're not holding the box. I make a point to always hold the box, and then you tighten it. But when you're storing it, it should never be hung by the straps. That's the Gemara over here. That tefillin, like we learned yesterday when it comes to the storage of svarim, that you can put it under your bed, under the head part of your bed, not under the feet part of the bed. Similarly, tefillin toilo oisin beirashis hamita, ve'ena toilo oisin margol ois hamita. And if you're hanging it from the bedposts, don't hang it from where you put your feet, only from where you put your head. And indeed, to prove that is okay enough, okay, or that you're not allowed to suspend it right near one's feet. It's a bizayin. It's a dishonor to the tefillin, Reb Shmuel, and quoted Rabavo, that quoted Rabbi Lozer, that saying in the name of Rab Chanina, that Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Yotoy less tefillin, Merashi Samit. Rashi writes in the Bavli, there was a peg, he had a special peg that he put somewhere by the head side of the bed, but that's where he would hang it from. He would hang it from the head of his bed. No. Don't suspend from the legs, suspend from the head. And now we have to clarify what suspending means. So the Gemara says, yes, you can suspend it from the head, not from the feet. But Daikalora. Don't hang it, says the Charedim, the way you hang a basket. How do you have a basket? The basket, you have like the receptacle, the ikid. Then you have like the rope. By the tefillin, the ikid would be the bias, and then you have the, don't hang it by the ritzuas. Ella tefillin milamailan, the box should be on the peg somehow, and then uritzua should be milamatan. Okay. First of all, I think that they would have a box. They would have a box to cover the head. And even if they didn't have the type of things everyone has today, boxes, bags. Not everyone had it. I know one thing, another thing. David is asking, why didn't they properly store it? These people, they counted their seconds to wrap it, to unwrap it. I heard from Rabbi Groner that the Rebbe only put his tefillin away properly for Shabbos, for time. So I think he would remove it and put it in a box. He'd probably cover it, but he wouldn't wrap it out. All four of them. Amazing. That's a whole different type of people. The time management by them was a whole different madrega. Okay, weiter. Says the Gemara, Tana, we learned in a Bryce. Rabbi Chalafta ben Shol says, now why are we going over here? Because we quoted something from Rabbi, so we're going to go to a whole different topic, also ultimately coming back to Rabbeinu HaKadosh. And we learned this in the Bavli, and it's a little bit funny. If you want to smile, he goes, that if a person sneezes, if a person vents air, we'll see soon what that means. During his davening, meaning during his Shemona Esrei Shmuli, Siman Raloi. It's a bad Siman. Now, 1 second. Let's first clarify the Braisa. Now the Gemara says that Hadod Da'at Amar, that which this Braisa is referring to is only Milumata. In other words, if a person is venting air, Milumata. All right, venting air. That is a bad sign. Why is that? So two things. First of all, when it happens in public, the person is humiliated. And this is to be interpreted that God is humiliating the person. And even if that's if people are there, and even if people are not there, the fact that there is a bad odor, it's something that should be interpreted, at least for people on this caliber, that God is telling them, I don't like your tefillah. You stink. But aval milmailam, but from above, Lloyd, it's not a bad sign. And we have in the Bavli another layer. It's a good sign. Because when you sneeze, it strengthens your limbs. I know that for sure. I heard it a lot when people are hoarse, that sneezing and yawning, both, they push it, they heal. So God is healing you while you're talking to him. So if you sneeze or yawn during davening, it's not because you're bored. It's God is doing it to you to tell you, I like your davening. I like you. I'm healing you. Thank you. And now the Gemara says that Asyon. Now it works. It fits with what? Add the letter Aleph. The Omar Rabbi Chanina. The Amar Rabbi Chanina. Anira ECS Rebbe. I davened once with Rebbe, and in the middle of Shemona Esrei, I saw that Rebbe was befayek, that he was yawning, Uma'atesh, and he was sneezing. And parenthetically, when someone does so in public, you cover your mouth. The point is that just like we had before, we're proving from the behavior of Rebbe what's right and what's wrong. Of course, Rebbe hung his tefillin, is that you can hang it. He only hung it from the head side of his bed. Good, that's a proof. The fact that Rebbe yawned and sneezed in davening is a raya that it's not about sim. That when the Braisa says it's only mulmata. The Hasidim relate to this. That's why by Hasidim we daven with the Rebbe. We looked at the Rebbe. Everything means something. When the Rebbe used to cough, the Rebbe coughed a lot. They used to tell us in yeshiva, it's our machshava zaris. That's what they told us. The Rebbe was trying to get rid of. In other words, everything means something. Even though it's a bodily function of the Rebbe. Why is it happening? It's meaningful. He's a merkava, huh? Only a Rebbe. No, okay, the fact that it happened in public doesn't make a difference. Is that it's a good thing? If it would have been a bad thing, it never would have happened. Now we but you know what the Rebbe never did? He would never spit during prayer. In other words, Rebbe held that it's also to spit during Shemona Esrei. Guys, a few things. We're going to learn two sugyas. Spitting in a Beis HaKnesses, we're not there yet. That's one issue. No, there's a Kaddush on the Beis HaKnesses. Now we're speaking about spitting because you're middle of davening, and the davening means Shemona Esrei, and we're going to have a whole sugya whether you can spit or not during davening. Okay. Says the Gemara, now that you mentioned that Rabbi would never spit during davening, Rabbi Yechanan Amar, no, that afilul roikik, that if you have the need to spit, you are allowed to do so. Now, the fact that Rebbe didn't do it doesn't, he's not going to, Rabbi Yechanan is not arguing with Rebbe. Rebbe never spit. Forget, if Rebbe would have spit, that would be a proof that you are allowed to. The fact that he never did, he never needed to do it. Rabbi Yechanan says if someone in the middle of davening has phlegm in their throat, so he says, you can spit. Why? What an expression. The word koisa normally means a cup. Here, koisa means your mouth. You're talking to God. You have something obstructing your speech. Clean it out. However, when you do so, you have to know how to do it. Lafanav asur. In front of you, it's asur. La'acharav. Behind you, it's permitted. Now, let's go to the sides. Now we have a big machlekes how to read the next words. We're going to quickly quote both ways, and then we're going to go with one. Liyamina yasur. Similarly, to your right, the right is like in front of you, it's asur. Now, the pshat, one way is pashat, to your right, to your left. However, there's another way of learning it. And that's really what the Rashirilio says, and he's going to prove it from the next line. And that is that to your right, the yamino doesn't mean you're right. We are davening in front of God. And even though God forbid, doesn't have a bodily form, but kaviyachol, right? So to say, if I'm standing in front of you, my right is your left, and my left is your right. And that's something that we have in other areas in halacha, that when we finish Moina Esrei, if we're not the Baal Tefillah, for davening b'yechidas, even with the minyan, when we step back, where do we bow first? We bow to the left. Where do you find in Judaism left goes first? Never. Left is always second. Those leftists. It's right. Abid, my left is God's right. That's why we bow. But if you are the Baal Tefillah, you are representing the Shekhinah, so to say, then you go to the right. That's in Shulchan Aruch already. So they shot that liyaminoi means to God's right. In other words, I'm not allowed to spit to my left, which is God's right. Lismoiloi, to God's left, which is my right, that's mutter. And we're going to learn that way. And the raya is, they have a pasuk in Tehillim. It says, Yipol mitzitcha elef. That may have elef, Yipol mitzitcha, the side, the zaitel. The zaitel is an expression of the evil. The evil is connected to the left. It means to the left side. That 1,000 should fall from your left. Who knows the pasuk? Urevava miminech. Now, Avakasha, why are there 10,000 enemies to your right? Because since my right is God's left, ki'ilu, there's less protection from the left. It's weaker. The fact that there's more enemies that I will destroy, but they are to my right, that's a raya that my right is weaker because it's God's left. There are lechatchila only 1,000 on my left because my left is God's right. That's the way that Ashadilio learns, and I know we can learn another whole way, but that's we'll go right. Says the Gemara. So now that Rabbi Yechanan argues with what was implied before, that you're not allowed to spit during davening. You could spit chol alma moide alazen and moide. L'kol alma, that what? But hahein derakik. Now there's different versions. Eat tal on. That if you're spitting in an idle matter, not because you have phlegm in your throat and you can't daven. Stam gespigen. The way those lowlife spit, that's also, that's not respectful. Spitting or not spitting is only when there's a need to spit. Now, I'm going to speak about the spitting in Oleinu in a moment, but before we get there, let's hop another layer. So Ad Khan was, I'm davening to God, and Shmoyne Esrei, am I allowed to spit? Rabbi Yechanan says, yeah, because it's respectful, but do it in a respectful way. Okay, now, what about where who bist du? If you're in the shul, there's another issue. If you're spitting in a synagogue, you're spitting in God's pupil. It's not respectful. Now let's just connect it to before. I mean, stop spitting. But what happens if you need to spit? And Rabbi Yechanan says you could spit. So now we say Rabbi Yoina, when he was a rakik, when he would spit in a shul, this shoyeth, he would rub it into the ground. He would rub it into the ground. And the bottom line is like this, guys. Spitting for no purpose is asur in the Beis HaKnesses. Spitting for a purpose, because there's something stuck in your mouth, is something that if you do, you should rub in with your foot. And you should spit, like we're saying over here, to your right, to your left, you have to know different shot. Just like Rabbi Yechanan held that if the spittle stuck in your mouth, you spit it out even during Shemona Esrei. Aleinu was not Shemona Esrei, so it's, to begin with, not that serious. But we have a minig, we Chabad have a proud minig that when we say the word Shehei Mishtachavim Lahevel Lorik, we spit out a little bit. First of all, that spittle is clear; it's not phlegm. And when we spit, we step on it. That's the Rabbi Yoino, Rakik Vishoyev. And now the question is right or left. So where do you spit to? So the Rebbe had the following practice. The Rebbe upstairs in 770, since the Friedik, theoretically, the Rebbe, the Tzaddik, should be davening to the right of the Aron Kodesh. Being that the Friedik Rebbe davened to the right upstairs, you can just imagine the 770 small shul. The Rebbe davened to the left, also to save time, because like this, the Rebbe who came from his office, he went to the first seat on the bench with the oilam before he became Rebbe. When the Rebbe became Rebbe, the Rebbe's insistence that the Friedik Rebbe's here was so strong that the Rebbe did not want to sit in his place. How can he sit in the Rebbe's place? So the Rebbe continues sitting. Many people didn't want to sit on that whole table. The Rebbe says if people won't sit on his table, he's not going to come into shul. And I don't know if you guys remember, I mean, by me, it was right in the early 80s when the Rebbe still davened sometimes upstairs. It was the strangest thing. If a guest didn't know the Rebbe was coming in there, they would be stuck sitting together with the Rebbe. It was very intimidating. Now, so when the Rebbe was davening upstairs, the Aron Kodesh was to his right. And whenever he did the spitting, the minig of Aleinu, he would put his hand to make a chatzitza, to make a separation between the spit and the Aron Kodesh. When the Rebbe was downstairs and the Rebbe davened to the right, because the Friedik Rebbe, there was no downstairs by the time of the Friedik Rebbe, the Rebbe davened like any tzaddik, he davens to the right. The Rebbe would put his left hand, same logic, to separate his mouth from the Aron Kodesh. So what was the Rebbe teaching us? That wherever, so if we're davening in behind it, wherever you're davening, wherever the Aron Kodesh is, that's where they would put his mouth. Give a little spit, and then you cover with your foot. You shoyif with your foot. The Mimush people, you have to know what that means. They didn't care where you're standing. If the Rebbe was upstairs, they said everyone has to put the hand on the right side. It doesn't matter what he said. When you're downstairs, and that was it. I remember that machloikas over there. You do what the Rebbe does. Okay, right. Now, says the Gemara, let's go back. Rab Yirmiyah quoted Rab Shmuel Bar Chalafte. B'Shem Rab Ado Bar Achla. I want to say like this, that Rab Lev Shapiro, my Rebbe, my teacher taught me, then in the Bavli, why is it that sometimes it says Amar Rab Yechanan, Amar Rav, let's say Amar, and sometimes it says Mishum. It has to do whether he heard it directly or whether he heard it indirectly. I don't know what the klal will be over here, but here in the Yerushalmi, sometimes they don't even say Amar. Like Rabbi Yirmiyah, it's not Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rab Shmuel Bar Chalafte. Rabbi Yirmiyah quoted Rab Shimon Bar Chalafte. But you get it, and then B'Shem Rab Ado. Why doesn't it say B'Shem by everyone? There's a klal that I don't know yet. I'll ask him today to see if he knows. He probably knows. Because when the floor is made out of our floor, made out of dirt, you're moichik, rubbing. Machik, sorry. Okay, yeah, very good. Masha'enken when you have our floors. No, because we have a garnish. Rabbi Yirmiyah, in the name of Rabbi Shmuel Bar Chalafte, in the name of Rabbi Bar Achva, says, when you're davening, you daven Shemona Esrei, you finish davening based on what we learned before. Don't spit in the Beis HaKnesses. Al Yorik Achi Halach Arba Amos. If you have the need to pray, it's amazing, Shmuley. The place where you daven has some kedusha. Even if you're davening out there, you want to spit, don't spit where you daven. Walk away for Amos. Amar Rabbi Yosi, Berebi Avon. So he touches Ben Rebbe Avon, the son of Rabbi Avon, and Vechein, the other way around. If you already made a spit and now you want to daven, don't daven where you spit. Walk away for Amos. No. Before davening, after davening. No, not doing Shmones. Because if I'm going on a hike and I stopped, I'm going to daven. Beautiful. And now I gave a spit. Then you want to daven, walk for Amos. Or if you daven, you want to spit. And the same thing with you urinating. Tani, we learned in the Bryce, it's the same concept. And Hamas Palom, al yotel asamayim, achi halachar ba'amis. If you davened in a place and then afterwards you want to relieve yourself, walk for Amos. And same thing in the other direction. First you urinated, and now you want to daven. Don't daven in Arba Amos. The problem with the second statement is we're not giving a time frame. So if you're telling me that wherever someone urinated, you can't daven, so you can't daven anywhere in the world. Says the Gemara, First of all, it doesn't mean you have to actually walk. Doesn't mean you have to walk for Amos. You know what it means? If you waited the amount of time that it would take to walk for Amos, that's good enough. And the proof is, if you actually have to walk the for Amos, I'm going to say, how can you daven here? Maybe someone urinated here. In other words, if it's not connected to a time frame, Elamai, it is connected to a time frame. I'm going to interpret a time frame means you don't even have to walk away. You just have to wait 4 hours before the time that it takes to walk 4 hours. How long is that? Guys, I don't know how many seconds. Right. Says the Gemara, let's go weiter. 6 feet. How long does it take you to walk 6 feet? Depends how old you are. Okay, how long take 2 steps? It depends how old you are. For some people, that gets a whole lot later. For some people, okay, weiter. Says the Gemara, Rab Abba b'shem Rav. Soya, guys, this is going to be the last topic. Now we're going to have really a machloikis what Rav said, version number 1. Rab Abba says in the name of Rav, when we learned yesterday that you have to distance yourself from soya, and even if it doesn't smell for amas, if it smells where the smell ends, and then for amas, that's if soya is soya. When does it stop being soya? When it becomes dry like a bone. When it becomes dry like a bone. Until then, it's considered soya. Mayim, urine, kols man shehei matpichen, as long as it's called tefeach hamanas latfiach, as long as it is so moist that if you were to touch it, your hand would become moist, and you can make something else moist, or just your hand becomes moist. So then it's considered urine. Once it doesn't have that level of moisture, even though it's not dry like a bone, that's already not considered meraglaim, and you can daven in its close proximity, especially as we just learned above. You have to walk away for Amos. You don't have to walk away for Amos. You have to just wait the amount of time. You get it? So that's also part of the flow. That is the din, what Rab Abba says in the name of Rab. But Geniva, Amar, no. Mayim Kozman Shirishum Nikar. He's more machmer. In other words, if you can discern, if you can see that someone urinated here, even though it's not that moist, matpichem, it's not moist, you're not allowed to daven in it for Amos. Now, Shmuel Amar, Shmuel is arguing with Rav, right? So the first shita was Rab Abba b'shem Rav. Shmuel argues, as he does very often with Rav. In the case of Tsoya, he's more lenient. Only Ache Yirkemu Panel. Not until it gets dried like a bone, only if the copper part becomes crusted, even if inside it's moist. It's already, you can daven within Daladamas, if there's no bad odor, of course. Now, and I want you to know, Shmuel says, who am I to argue with? That's not only me, but Shmuel Barva or Barba, Bar Abba says the name of Rabbi Yechanan, also like me, more lenient than Rab Ab, what was that sheet again? Than the sheet of Rab Abba b'shem Rab. No, the argument when there's no smell. Yet, independent of the smell, we learned soya kolshu. We learned yesterday that you have to not cover that with a spittle. You can't daven within its daladamas. Now, hold on.
Wait, 1 second, Rabbi. I'm so sorry. The smell, how does that interact with the crusting or the hardness? Meaning, we're talking even if there's no smell.
There's no smell. If there's smell, we learned yesterday, no matter what, no matter from what, doesn't have to be soya. Wait until the bad odor ends and then walk away daladams. Here, there's no smell.
Got it.
It's a drop. Nervous then, soya. How much does it have to become oist soya? What's the point? That there's bittul. So we had Rabbi Abba b'shem Rav, we had Geniva. Then who argued with him was Shmuel, was Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan. Now we're going to have another version as to what Rav says. Now this Gemara is a bit not difficult. I'm going to learn it the way I spent a little bit of time yesterday, and whoever has an art scroll, I know the art scroll has a whole different shot, but bear with me, and if I'm wrong, so zayin. I think I'm right. Rabbi Yirmi, it says in the name of Rabbi Zira, in the name of Rav, that he says tsoya afilu asuya ke'etzem, even if it became dry like a bone. No, that's b'shem Rav. Not that if it becomes dry like a bone, you can say. No, even if it reached that level, it's still usher. You know when it's going to be mutter, when it completely disintegrates and it becomes dust. Only then does it lose its din of tzoya. And according to this version, on that Shmuel said what he said before. No, Achi Yikamu Paneha. And Shimon, Barva, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, again, in other words, there's no machloikas what Shmuel said. The machloikas is only with what Rav says. Achi Yikamu Paneha. So now that we have two versions as to what did Rav say.
So the second version, Rav, means that it has to be crumbled up into dust.
No. That's not. That's the yes, Danny. That's the second version of Rav.
And the first one is very super hard, just not, but it could still be the form.
That's right. Very good.
Got it.
Very good. Now the Gemara is going to prove the second version. Bear with me. Don't read the art scroll here. It's not going to work for you. Now we're going to prove that the second version is correct. Rav did not say what Rav Abba said he said. That's what Chizkiah is going to argue. Amar Chizkiah. That Rabbi Abba machmer b'mayim yoser min atzoya. It's not going to work. In other words, we have a rule that soya is more chamur. Soya is more chamur. How can it be, according to that first version, that soya becomes not soya anymore when it's dry? In other words, prior to it being dry, it's awesome. Mayim. One second. When it's dry, it's still awesome. I know when it's dry. When it's dry, it's mutter. When it's dry, it's mutter. And by Mayim, it's going to be awesome. No. Before Genev, not Genev. Genev is going to be the solution. The kasha was that Rabbi Abba says that it's moist. Once it's no longer moist. No. That's a second opinion. How was it more chamor? What was his kasha? Dried out excrement and absorbed urine should have been the same law.
But now it sounds like it's more.
How did he understand? How did he understand Chizkiah that dried out urine is still chamur? One second. Who said in Abba Suya Ke'etzim? The first version. So 1 second. So Chizkiah says it can't be. Rabbi Abba is wrong. According to Rabbi Abba, then it's going to be that Mayim is more chamur. Why would Mayim be more chamur? Mayim, even when it's moist. Yeah. Good. I don't know. Mayim, even when it's moist, is a problem. Mayim, even when it's moist. Correct. Matpichen. Why is it more strict? Why is it more strict? You're saying that soya, it has to be, even when it's not moist. Even when it's not moist. No, before
the mayim is about it being absorbed. It means as long as it's there, you can't daven there. Whereas with the soya, even though it's there and you're able to daven there, so therefore he's saying that the mayim is more chomer than the soya.
But absorb was only geniva. Absorb was only geniva. The first version was even if it's not absorbed, you can also daven there. Why can you daven there? Because if it's not tefeach hamanas latfiach, then you can daven there. So now what? Rabbi Abba is machmer Yosef. Oh, very good. That's what it is. How can mayim, if it's absorbed in the ground, that's the emphasis. Since it's absorbed in the ground, it should have been nothing. And yet, if it gives moisture, that can't be. That can't be. So Amalei Rav Mana, no, that the version of Rabbi Abba B'Shem Rav is correct because he actually holds. It just proves Geneva is right. And Kol Zman Shedishuma Nikar, urine is like soya. If you can see it, it's gonna give off. So Amalei, so Chizkiah is telling Rav Mana, no. Afilo asoy ke'etzem, it has to still be asura. Mipnei shema masher kayom, mayim ein mamasher kayom. In other words, even if you're going to go with Geneva, can't be that Rav said that once it becomes ke'etzem, it's going to be muter because it's still there. It's still there. So you're telling me that even though Itzoya is still there, it's going to be okay. Urine, ein mamasha kayom. Let's go with Geneva's pshat that even though it got absorbed, it can't even be the Shima Nikar. Can't even be the Shima Nikar. If the Neshima is Nikar, then urine is problematic. How can it be that soya, that form is there, even if it's because etzem is not a problem, and urine, even though it got absorbed, is a problem. It has to be completely. You don't even see its trace. It can't be, and therefore it must be that Shmuel that Rabbi Yirmeh B'Shem Rabbi Zeira's version is right. Ein achanami. Rav, all Rav is saying is if you can still see it, you can't daven within Daled Amos. It has to be completely not only dry, it has to be crumbled. Thank you. Okay, that is that. Now we have enough time to learn the next halacha. By halacha 6. So let's quickly go back to Tumas Balkeri. That Ezra made a takana that if a person has a seminal emission, and what we learned before, really it's only from the act of tashmish. We had a machlokes amoraim in the Yerushalmi. Remember that? That was Rabbi Shua ben Levi, or the other version was Davar Acher. Then you have to go to the mikveh. The Mishnah over here is going to give 3 scenarios where in addition to someone having the Tumas Balkeri, they also have another Tumah for which mikveh won't even remove. Case number 1. Mamish. Exactly the same. Zav. Now a Zav is not the Balkeri. A Zav is someone who has some sort of discharge that, according to the Gemara Nida, right, it doesn't look like the normal Zera. It doesn't necessarily come because of a kishui. Okay. Some people say it's some sort of a disease, a gonorrheal disease, whatever the word in English is, that doesn't help me. But let's go to a Zav. And all the dinim, that if you have one emission, you have a din of a Balkeri. If you have 2 emissions within the same day or in 2 consecutive days, one after the other, you have a din of a Zav, Katana, cotton. You don't have to bring karbanis. And yeah, for sure. Now, and then once you become a Zav, you have to have Shivas Nekiyim, and then you have to go to the mikveh Mayim Chai. If a Zav is not after the Shivas Nekiyim, or even if he doesn't go into Mayim Chayim, he won't be purified. So what happens if a Zav saw a Keri? I'm not even speaking about what that does to the Shivas Nekiyim. It's not negay all those pratim here. Point is that right now, he has Tumah Zav, and he's a Balkeri. Case number 2. A Nida Shepalta Shichva Zera. Now, let me say like this. This is a woman that was not a Nida and she had a marital relation. We already spoke out 2 days ago that the din of Tfilas Ezra goes on a woman for 2 things. For the act of Tashmish, for the woman, independent of Zera, which is what happened. The couple were together, and she, as it was common then, as we learned a few days ago, she went to the mikveh. The woman went to the mikveh. She's not tamei with the tumas of Tfilas Ezra because of Tashmish. They both went to the mikveh. The big difference is that a man goes to the mikveh, even if there was a zera, that results. The woman has zera in her. And if that drips out, then she again has to go to the mikveh. Prior to the zera leaving the woman's body, so first of all, they had an act of tashmish, she went to the mikveh. That's the case. She's completely tohira. First, she becomes a nida. She became an nida, had her vessels. She had a cycle. Tumah chamura, And now, in addition, shepalta shichva zera. The Seder was first Nida and then Zera. The third case of the Mishnah is Hamisha Meshesh. So they had an act of cohabitation. And as we just mentioned, independent of Zera leaving her body, the act of Tashmish in itself demands Tfilas Ezra. So she has to. So now she has Tfilas Ezra, which is Tuma Kala. And prior to her going to the mikvah, now she became a Nida. Remember that for tomorrow. In other words, the case 2 and case 3 is both about a woman that has both tumas. Why are we giving 2 cases? The question is which one came first, which will be important, but we'll leave it. Right now, there's, and the first one is the Zav. He has a tuma chamura, Zav, and he has Zera. So the question is, do they have to go or not? Machlekes Tanoi. Zera. So I just needed to explain that in order for you to argue that case number 2 is where there's first chamur and then kala, people say for her to have shechva zera means it was an act of cohabitation. The act of cohabitation in itself couldn't have happened when she's a nida. Ata berisha askinan. So it happened before. So case number 2 is also that she was chayv to go hamisha meshes. So the answer must be she was mishameshes. She went to the mikvah, and then she became a nida, and then she expelled zera. Okay. So as Tanakama says, yes, tzrichim tvila. Ein achanami. You can't resolve the tuma chamura. But so what? You got to go to the mikvah for tefillas ezra. However, Rabbi Yehuda, which is what we call Rabbi Yehuda, holds no. Poiter, you're not obligated to go to the mikvah. Now let no, Anita can daven. Yeah. No, let's just, we have another minute, not to give Rabbi Blan all of that free space. So look inside the Haredim, Rabbi Yehuda Poiter, Kosalka Daita. So when I mentioned before that which one came first, that's already the maskana. So let's just read now, just to leave off what we're going to start to take up tomorrow. Rabbi Yehuda Poiter Kosalka Daitach says the Charedim. You see, Hashta. Now we have a Havamina. Why does he pater? Because since first the person has tuma chamura, and nevertheless, like you asked David, can a nida daven? Can a zav daven? Yeah. The tefillas Ezra was only made something connected with tashmish, not because of tuma. That what? So it doesn't make sense that the person becomes a zav or a nida, and you're telling them you can still daven, you can say shema, you can be masked God's holy names. But now because you have a tuma kala, now you have to go to the mikvah. It doesn't fit. Sulayasya tumaskeri the kila v'hasrilei. That's that will be the first approach in understanding Shittas Rabbi Yehuda, and to be continued. I love this sneezing part of today. That was great. How to interpret? They were interpreting. Mama, did this happen? All right, God loves you. God doesn't love you. Where's burping? That David has a good kasha. I don't know.